So the greatest thing that we can imagine coming out of this summit, our group had a pretty good discussion. I think one thing that came to mind was to stop the negativity. I think the comparison that was on the front page of the paper was, Detroit of the West, and perhaps out of this effort, we can, here in Northern Nevada, stop the bleeding and hopefully be able to create a brand for the community to move forward. The second part of that greatest thing that can occur is hopefully the end of the turf battles for economic development here in Northern Nevada. Everybody, taking credit for, for the greater good of the whole regional area here in Northern Nevada for economic development. I think the second part of that question were the 3 key steps for that greatest thing to occur. I think we had an interesting discussion with becoming too heavily focused on cost versus investment, and to be able to create specific benchmarks for the community in this new effort to come around and move forward. I think the better coordination and at least communication amongst the politicals, I think with the state of Nevada stepping up and being more of a leader and playing more of an active approach, perhaps that can step with it. And then I think the one thing that did come up was a regional brand, to differentiate Northern Nevada between Northwestern Nevada, Truckee Meadows, places like Fernley, Fallon, and to create a brand that can help out the greater community and to differentiate this part of the state with others like Southern Nevada and the I-80 corridor and so forth.
We discussed briefly was the fact that we talk about Northern Nevada, but we are usually really focusing on Western Nevada, the Sierra Nevada corridor. I think of Northern Nevada as Humboldt County, Elko County, and certainly we have some affiliation with that part of Nevada, but it's a far more rural area than the urban Western Nevada corridor. And I think it would be useful for people to understand better, perhaps, the opportunities that exist in this part of the state to be a little more specific about the area. I thought the Sierra Nevada corridor name was good, or we could simply call it Western Nevada, because it is a much more urban corridor with different kinds of challenges and different kinds of assets and different kinds of transportation resources as well.
My name is Aster Gurma, Nevada Green Institute. It's a non-profit organization. Any plan process should have a clear performance measure, including plan effectiveness in meeting goals and objectives. That should be clear, therefore it creates, it should be disseminated to different party groups. Information disseminating strategy should be in place and should include how to reach various category of groups, citizens, businesses, non-profit organization, a strategy to engage the public and local business and organization, challenge opportunities, new ideas about regional sustainable economic growth. Therefore, and when we have that collaboration and people, they can be on the same page. And then it's good for the sustainable economic growth.
Recognizing that balancing parochial interests wastes energy. However, we need to appreciate that where a business locates does matter. With this in mind, we can commit to overcome this by enthusiastically adopting an attitude of openness and cooperation. So that's the advice. As far as the 3 steps, I think number 1 is agree on what a definition of economic development is. We need to have that agreement. Number 2, create an asset map of all of the programs within that 10 framework of responsibilities that I put up there that Steve Hill gave us. And number 3, then create an integrated plan to work together to further the top priority issues that are within that matrix. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ken Crater. I'm with MTK Limited, and we had a lot of thoughts on this issue, so I'll just kind of go through them quickly here. The first one is streamlining processes for discretionary permits, building permits, and business licenses. And the think actually a lot of communities are doing a really good job at that, but there's more work that can be done because time is money when it comes to businesses that want to start up a new location, and that's just a huge issue for a company looking to relocate. Also being pragmatic with architecture and landscaping requirements. As an example, do we really need to have fancy architecture on a new manufacturing or logistics building in the middle of an industrial area? Or would that money be better spent by the business and upgrading or spending more money for better energy efficiency? So I think we really need to think as a community where it's appropriate to have good architecture and good landscaping, and where maybe we could cut back a little bit to promote business development. Flexibility and adaptive reuse of vacant buildings. Somehow we need to maybe figure out how to do an inventory or get the word out where we have vacant buildings that could be adapted for a business looking to relocate as opposed to building a new one. Obviously there's a huge number of empty office buildings, manufacturing, warehouse buildings, and if we could have some way to inventory those and work with new companies to figure out where they might be able to locate more cost effectively. One thing is parking in downtown. Obviously with the rise of Indian gaming, we're seeing fewer casinos going out of business in the downtown areas. And one of the biggest drawbacks right now, or biggest impediments to a new business relocating down there, is the lack of parking. And I think if local governments could get together and figure out how to solve that parking problem, that would be a huge advantage to getting more businesses to relocate downtown and ultimately fill up some of those buildings that are emptying out as casinos move out. Let's see, I'm trying to read Perkins' writing. Oh yeah, realizing that business and residents are customers and treat them as such. And I think it's really important that we make sure that we get citizen input and buy-in from what we do. We can sit here as a group and talk about these great things, but we really need to make sure that we go to the great citizens of Reno, Sparks, and Washington County and make sure that we have their input and their buy-in, because that'll make our job that much easier. And then also, a lot of businesses that come to town across the nation, everybody has different regulations, different forms for business licenses, and if we could have some sort of advocate or group, whether it be in government or with local government, working with consultants and other business owners, and I think we do that to some degree, but to make sure that there's always somebody, even in a small business, to guide them through the red tape process and help them in filling out applications for a business license or a special use permit, just to help expedite that. I think that's it.
Colleen Candidates with Nevada Micro Enterprise Initiative. We talked about some similar things that came out of the other table with regard to policy regulation and procedures really being streamlined and coordinated so that the user actually knows where to go and isn't getting sent from place to place to place in the process. Also with permits and timing for buildings and special use, making sure that it goes quickly and it's not taking up to 90 days to get things going when you have a big company trying to come in, and also the reduction of bureaucracy in that. Another piece of what we discussed was really the government, instead of coming in and just always regulating business, coming in and having a conversation about what's needed, what are kind of the needs that you need right now that we can help meet, and really respecting the expertise of the partners and the resources that are here in the community. I think another really big piece of this is supporting the educational infrastructure. The SB 75 got passed, which has huge potential for the state, and yet the education fund isn't funded. And that's a huge support in the Youth Star model and what made that really effective, and I think what our state is heading towards. So making sure that we have equal support on both sides so that the educational infrastructure will be there, and also educating people about the education that we do have to attract new businesses out there. And then one other thing that came out of it was increasing the percentage of using locally owned businesses for procurement activities.
Craig Mosher, in his comments, spoke about the importance of education, and I think there is another dimension to economic development that we really haven't talked about this evening, except for Greg's comments, and that is the time frame that's required to implement these things. A lot of the action plans that we heard earlier were about many of the short-term things, the usual things like attracting businesses and growing existing business retention and that sort of thing, and making business more friendly so that we can attract them here. But there is another aspect of it, and that is the long term. And this is going to take 10, 15, 20, 30 years for us to have a viable, to rebuild a viable economy. And education is the foundation of that. So I'll speak to that K through 12. I mean, higher education and research and building the creative forces that we need to build from within our community is equally important. And the foundation for our higher education is K through 12. And I'll just make a little plug for all of the little brochures that I set out this evening for the Me campaign and the Community Compact. And the purpose of that is to change the culture of how people think about K through 12 education and the importance of that, and keeping our children on the path to graduation and to higher proficiency. So I think that's an extremely important thing, and I really applaud people who are in education, in K through 12, and higher education. And it goes back to, I mean, some of the real difficulty we had through the last legislative session, and that was funding education. That's going to be a major thing. That's going to be a key component to our economic development in the future. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Vicki McGowan, and I have a local business, a small local business, sales and marketing. We didn't exactly follow the exact format. We just kind of brainstormed on all of this. The first thing we thought was most important was retention and expansion of existing businesses. Of course, to grow the businesses that are here and keep them viable are most important. So buy local, support local, help promote each other through promotions and packages and special events like wine walks, farmers markets, business walks, cross-marketing with each other, keep the local businesses viable. Some of the ideas we had were to keep our businesses strong and grow. For example, they could go to your vendors or your suppliers and find out if the products or the services that we use could be produced in Nevada. Another idea would be to maybe go to your corporate headquarters if you're a franchise business, or you've got suppliers that might be able, you could recommend expansion in Nevada. And a couple of the examples were, for example, Starbucks, who built a production plant here. And I don't know if you want to say the dairy farmers, but for example, farmers going to milk producers or maybe yogurt producers in northern Nevada, you know, taking our products and expanding from those. And then we got into the discussion of education, and we also felt that the local businesses, we called it workforce training, that we needed to go to EDON or go to our development organizations and have education more vocational focused. So that local businesses, for example, would go and specify what their needs are. They need drivers or welders or concrete pourers to keep our local businesses viable. And that's all the further we got. Thank you.
And we thought the quickest way to get people back to work and for economic development was to focus on existing companies that already exist, they're already here. And so the question we talked about was, how can we get them to grow quicker and add more employees right now? So one of our ideas was that if each local company to ask themselves, how could I add one more employee or 10 more employees, depending on how big you are, how could I add them in a profitable way? So not charity, but you know, could we add a new market? Could we add a new division? Could we add a new product line? And that would get the most people back to work the fastest and grow our economy the quickest. Another idea we had was to train and grow local talent. It could be your own employees to make them more productive, or it could be maybe sharing what your company knows with the general public just to make our workplace pool more talented. Another question was, what 3 key things would need to change to get everybody more involved in the process. At first we thought, well, we just need to get more people aware of what economic development really is and why it matters to everybody in Nevada. And another idea we had was to create an asset map for small businesses and startups, something beyond just the local Chamber of Commerce directory, but helping more companies connect with more local resources. Thank you.
We've talked about how the state should be a clearinghouse for pretty much anything economic development related, and to support the services and organizations below it. We've kind of touched on that tonight, and be able to foster and grow local incubators, taking it so that we can do technology transfer from the educational institutions, taking them out of these areas where the ideas are being thrown to waste, really, because they're not able to be sustainably grown into real businesses, that instead they're going to San Francisco, they're going to Austin, they're going to other states where those services are available. So what key things the region could do to, three key things that the region needs from the state to enhance economic development. The first thing would be to find resource agencies to market their products, and really just streamline the regulatory process, the RFP process, and not necessarily grant RFPs to local talent for the sake of them being local, is that we do have a lot of talent here that gets overlooked, and when they're overlooked, they then go to other markets to find work, when there's plenty of work and talent here in the area. And then finally, allowing the state to be the clearinghouse for open access to information and accessibility, approachability, really being able to open up. For those of you who have heard, Hack for Reno was an example of that, being able to take data, make it available to people so that they can actually make decisions based on that information. So that's what we talked about.
My name is Ed Knoll. I just had some input. We love Nevada. People outside the state don't know who we are. State needs to brand us as one. We're diverse, but we don't have an identity outside the state. I think that's what a state has to do.
Jeff Kadega, one of my observations too is that I think one of the things that we do have a governor that's engaged in this issue right now. And I think it's very important for some of the top prospects to literally be led around by the hand by the chief executive of the state of Nevada. I think that's one of the important things. It's one of the things that's happened in Texas. It's one of the things that's happened in North Carolina in the Research Triangle. It's happened in Route 28 in Boston and that sort of thing. It really does take that kind of top level commitment to bringing that kind of business to our state. And I think a little FaceTime with his honor would be a good thing.
I'm Brian McCardle with NIRAC, and what we came up with is really looking at it as a region. I think that's the question kind of answers itself. Branding the region, so we had mentioned possibly branding it a Western Nevada region, Sierra region, something. And keeping information and resources not in silos. When a company wants to look at the area to possibly move here, they're not going to look at counties or cities, they're going to look at it as a region, and they don't want to be catered to differently to each one. So if they're going to come here, they're going to look at it as a whole. And what citizens, I guess, the question was, what can people in the region do? I think we can promote the fact that this is a great place to live. I read somewhere that Reno was voted one of the best 15, I think it was 15 best places to live. If we can spread that message, companies will want to move here. And when companies move here, the job situation will get better. And it'll be a great place to live and a great place to work. So I think looking at it as a region, and we can all do our part in saying how great it is to live in Northern Nevada or Western Nevada or Sierras, whichever one you want to call it. So.
This kind of picks up off of what Brian just said, but I'm Eric Grimes from the Church of Economic Development Authority. I guess what we could do as local citizens is define what we want as a region. Because there's, in all of the talks from the top level down, what we're hearing is regionalization, regionalization. We want regions. But what is the definition of a region? How do we make that determination? Is it geographic boundaries? Is it by industry? Is it by north-south? How are we going to make that happen? Well, one of the best things that we can do as citizens of this state is tell our elected officials, tell the people in power that are going to help make these decisions what we want to see as a region. Not what coming down. So I think that's probably one of the other things that we could do.
Well, one of the things definitely against, because I come out of the manufacturing industry, is energy costs in the region. And it's not, you can't just look at the basic rates and say how we compare, but it's the rate structures. So for example, in manufacturing back in New England, back in southern US, they have things what they call interruptible energy rates. So that if you have a peak demand, that you can call a company. Sorry. That if you, yeah, I'm kind of shy, sorry. But if you get a peak demand day, utility company can call you up, and in 15 minutes, you got 15 minutes to get off the grid. If you don't get off the grid, your rate triples. And my facilities in the past, we've saved $600,000–700,000 a year just by having a different rate structure. And that's something that's been worked on with the Public Utility Commission. I think in this country, it's only available through, I believe, irrigation systems or farmers. So that's one thing. And then the other thing would be on, so we actually put a cogen facility in, then we can see the standby charges go up. So when you thought you had a good return on it, but lower standby charges for cogen and other self-generation options. There's a lot of talk about green energy here. If you don't have the industries here to consume the energy, then what does it matter?
Economic development, I think, is shifting the naysayers off to being president. We get into the tussle between can we do it, can't we do it? And when you have truly transformative things in our community, you back up to what really makes the state of Nevada. Gaming back in the 30s was not that popular. I think folks that got gaming over the line in Nevada were real popular nationwide. Do you think the community was as accepting as we are of having gaming in our community every day? That was a real transformative action, and it's setting the motion to why, frankly, many of us are here today. Someone said that change is scary. It is scary. And it takes, I don't know what the politically correct term for it is, but balls, but that's why I'm not an elected official. But that's what it takes. The community that can rally around and be truly transformative, not just translated. I mean, a lot of economic development is translated. We're taking things that are working in other communities and translating them into our state. But transformative things that really rock the boat comes around to branding. You can spend all the money on your advertising you can with a message that really doesn't stick out and it doesn't get remembered. You do something that causes controversy, is truly transformative, and gets people talking about it. Yeah, you're going to have your haters, but they're not your market. If they hate the idea, they hate the concept, great, don't come. But if you like it, they're going to come find you. And that's the thing we have is dialogue now to start thinking about that. But it is going to make people uncomfortable. And we get a little bit caught up into just what we want, that's great, but we've got a marketing job to do too. We've got to figure out what our customers, the folks we're trying to attract over here want, and then make a community decision of whether we're going to bend to that and do something truly transformative.
In a way, helping them understand how they can contribute. And if you talk to everybody, you talk to everyone in here really, you'll find out that everyone really loves to live here. Everyone loves to be here. They go away and end up coming back for some reason they can't quite identify. I spent 4 days out in Pittsburgh and kept telling people I don't know why I kept going back to Reno, but I just love the place. And yeah, we need to shake some things up. We need to scare some people. And I think along with that, one of the barriers is that we need to rehumanize the process of getting businesses here. Like, I hear everyone calling them prospects and leads and stuff, and I would just shelve all those words. I would just toss them all out. These are people coming in. We want to engage with them as people. We want them to be the people that come to these tables in 5 years and help us grow the community again. So let's just start by calling them what they are and treating them the way that we want them to be treated and want them to treat us when they come back.
One of the barriers that we have to improving the job situation here is that everyone involved in economic development within Nevada, Brian, Steve, Robert, Mike, Greg, and all of the people that were here tonight, what talent. And you're doing a wonderful job of talking to each other. But let me tell you something. I came from Silicon Valley. There are hundreds of companies, medium and large companies, that could locate, maybe a small piece of their business here. Or they could outsource some of the business or some of the manufacturing they're doing there here. But the key is even though we're doing a great job of talking to each other, as this gentleman pointed out, we need to humanize it. We need to go, Silicon Valley is half the distance than the distance to Las Vegas. It's right over the hill. This is such an easy sell. I know. I'm a California refugee. And in fact, the reason why I'm here was to buttonhole Mike and suggest that steel folding chairs should be used in all of the offices of anybody that's involved in economic development. So they'll get out of their offices, they'll jump over the hill, and they'll just simply get businesses to come over here, or portions of businesses.
I think one really important part of the process too is there's a lot of really talented people in this room, and like you said, we're having a conversation with each other, and there's sort of a lot of different pieces of economic development that are happening in northern Nevada and statewide. And I just think it's really important that we educate also all the people that live here. I think in a way they're being sort of left out of the story, and if we can come up with a united platform and even moving into smaller clusters in specific industries so that they have a united platform, I think that's going to help streamline things. But everybody has to be behind what we're doing, and I think it's just, I'm a part of being in it, and sometimes it's confusing. Are we doing this strategy? Are we going this way? And especially if you want to pull the private industry in, because I do think that's a really important part of, again, that U-Star model. If that's where we're going, I'm not sure it still is, but if it is, we need to make sure that we're educating everybody what's going on out there so they know that how they can play a role in it, they know how they can be a part of it, and they know how they can promote it, because there's people connected to other communities as well that can help attract some of that business. So I just think once we kind of figure out where we're going, just making sure that it's really consistent, really apparent, and then we can really deliver that message to the community as a whole.